Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go ahead and call to order the December 8th, 2014 meeting of the Salisbury City Council. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, whether here or at home on PAC 14. Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. First and foremost, if you happen to have a cell phone and it's the ringer's on, if you wouldn't mind turning that to vibrate or turning it off, we'd appreciate it. If you get an important call, if you wouldn't mind taking it in the hallway. Just a reminder also that the emergency exits are out the door to the right, and there's a secondary exit out the door past the elevator to the left. With that, I will welcome the senior pastor at Bethesda United Methodist Church, Pastor Albert, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and leading us in the city invocation.
Thank you.
What else if you join me in prayer? Dear Lord and Master of creation, the holy writings of my people claim that wisdom was your first order of business in creation. I ask now that you would grant true wisdom to all who would speak tonight, to the city council, guide their questions and responses, that clarity, grace, discernment, and your wisdom be the foundation of their work. Give them courage to do the hard things rather than the expedient, to do the right thing, even if it's not the popular thing. In your wisdom, I ask you to guide this session. I offer this prayer in the name of the one and only true God. Amen.
Amen. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The next item on our agenda is presentation by Decorating Delmarva Holiday Fest, Mark Cathell. Oh, not here? Okay. All right. Well, we have an exciting presentation on United Way, the Lower Eastern Shore. I'm going to ask Kathleen Momet to come up and Mayor Ireton.
I thought I had a little extra time to do this throat lozenge during the community presentation, so I will try and get through this. Where are you going there? First off, let me say that we have some incredible news for our citizens and for our friends at the United Way. Every year we do this presentation throughout the city. We go to the opening of the United Way campaign. We just went to the offices, the new offices right there on North Salisbury Boulevard, behind the E.S. Atkins building, where the United Way is now has a beautiful permanent location. That was such an excellent ribbon cutting to be able to do. And before I turn it over to Kathleen, I'd want to say thank you to all of our city employees that contributed this year, and the amazing thing that Kathleen's going to tell you about that. And then also we have some of the winners of some of the drawings we did for people who were able to contribute. We did some gifts and prizes for them so that they can be recognized. So if you all will stand, I think, Kim, you were one too, weren't you? So if the three of you will stand. Those are three of our winners that we were able to get from our office for doing the work.
Got two more in the back?
Two more in the back, yeah. And that's Public Works and the Police Department and the Clerk's Office and Community Development. That's a pretty great thing. Before I turn it over to Kathleen, what I had said, my remarks when we opened your new office were that I've always believed that a society will be judged by how we treat one another. And if that's the case here in our area, what the United Way does for the citizens of the Lower Shore is absolutely incredible. So I will turn this over to Kathleen Momet so that she can present the check to us and give us some incredible news. Kathleen?
Thank you. And when I walked in tonight, it was just seeing the Christmas lights. I was thinking, this is just such an incredible announcement to make. And it's not about what's going to happen on Christmas Day, where everyone right now, they're thinking about who their presents are for and how they're going to help someone. What the Salisbury employees, City of Salisbury employees have done this year is making it possible for the spirit of Christmas to last far beyond December 25th. And it's going to be all year long. Their giving last year. And first I'd like to step back because Sherelle is usually the coordinator for this campaign, and she was out had a beautiful baby, and everyone jumped through. And I think, when everyone on this city has enough on their plates and they're given one more task, they rose to the occasion. I know Laura Mitchell, at our kickoff, thank you. You came back, we did a presentation, and you challenged your council members and other council members as well. Tom Stevenson, you and Donna Haig went above and beyond, and thank you for coming to multiple presentations. The interest and support of your leadership, Mayor, was integral to say, let's get the presentations, and your employees responded. Last year, just to talk about the Christmas spirit and the spirit of giving for our community, last year, the City of Salisbury employees donated $3,410 to our local United Way. Yeah, that was last year. This year, they have increased that giving by 106%, with a total of $7,019.08. Is a great commentary on the leadership here of the council, the staff, and most importantly, all the people who gave not to win a prize, but I'm glad there were people here that won prizes because you wanted to help someone you may not know. So on behalf of all of our board of directors and most importantly, the 70,000 people we will be able to help in the year ahead, God bless you and thank you for caring so much. This says a lot about the type of people who work at the City of Salisbury. Thank you. Okay.
And then if the employees who won will come back, and then council, if you'll come back there with me, we'll get this picture.
Worth mentioning, Kathleen, worth mentioning that Sherelle is back today. So today, what a day, what a welcome, what a perfect gift to welcome Sherelle back.
Can you get it to stick?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, there we go.
Nobody breathe.
Just don't breathe on it.
Kathleen, yeah.
She's coming from Delaware. She said she'd be here like at 10:06.
Okay.
But since she's not here, I was wondering if you just smoothly move the agenda forward, and we'll come back to it.
Get cozy.
She gets here.
Look at all the photos. Let's get in front of it.
He actually had to go first.
Okay.
With flash in the back, are you ready?
It's everything but a box camera.
Anyone else, by the way?
Shooting gallery here.
Kathleen, it won't focus.
Fire rooms to go by.
It will focus.
Is your
Oh my
finger,
goodness.
is your
I'll
finger?
send you mine.
Okay, you'll send me yours. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Thank you. Good news. Okay.
Well, off of that exciting news, we'll adopt this evening's legislative agenda. I will note, I will entertain an amendment when we get to, if there's a motion to adopt the agenda. I will entertain a motion to amend, given that I think Ms. Baker is running a little bit late. So if we can move the presentation of the audit until after the ordinances, I would appreciate it. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the legislative agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Motion and a second. Discussion? I'll entertain that motion for an amendment if someone will offer it.
Oh, sorry. Where are we moving it to?
You want to move it to after the ordinances?
Sure, I'll make a motion to move the audit presentation to the end after the ordinances.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a second. All right. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And any other discussion on the agenda? All those in favor of the amended legislative agenda, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes,
Ms. Nichols?
whichever.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, we have on the consent agenda this evening the November 17th, 2014 work session minutes, the November 17th, 2014 closed session minutes, the November 24th regular meeting minutes, and resolution number 2465 authorizing the capacity fee of the city's comprehensive connection charge be waived for a development known as Headquarters Live located at 115 South Division Street. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a moment to say that it's nice to see the EDU waiver, the capacity fee waiver system continuing to work to promote place-based economic development and revitalization of our city and downtown, and to see a music venue coming to downtown. So very excited about that and glad to see that that tool is continuing to work. Next item on our agenda is ordinance number 2307 for first reading, noting that we only have 4 members present. Bear in mind, this is a budget amendment will require, not at this first reading, but will require at second reading, 4 members to vote in favor to pass. With that, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2307?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second?
Has the dinging stopped?
The dinging?
Or is it just?
Oh, the ringing?
The ringing.
There is
It's coming.
Feedback
Little
from
echo.
my
Is it
end.
coming?
I think so.
It's not just in my head.
No.
Not this,
It's in all of our heads.
not this time, no.
I don't hear anything.
Council, thank you for entertaining a budget amendment this evening that addresses some of the issues that we have in our fire department. This budget amendment is for $160,000, 611 cents, and it's for 4 firefighters to be able to go on the trucks that we have coming out of our fire stations. Right now, OSHA is asking us to have 4 people on each truck, 4 firefighters as they leave the station. Right now, we have 5 firefighters assigned to each truck. This amendment is for 4 to make sure that we can address the issues that the chief has brought to us about vacations and about sick. And then, of course, through the mass media presentations about all of this, that the 11 remaining Safer Fire Grant officers have been hired part-time. So it is our contention that we are moving towards making sure that every one of those trucks that goes out of one of our firehouses has the requisite amount of people on it. So I bring that to you this evening. As I said, OSHA says 4 on a truck. We have 5 assigned to each truck. We're offering 4 tonight for this amendment, and we now have another 11 part-timers that can help us be able to make sure that our trucks are going out the right way. So I will leave the rest of the official things to Mark Tillman. I know he likes to read these things to you, but we appreciate, first off, the council saying that they did want an amendment. I actually did not know that 2 weeks ago. The minute I knew it, we worked to figure out what we could do for you, and we believe that this is a good plan moving forward, and we will continue to address all of the questions that come to us when they come to us. We will address the questions of staffing and that nature. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this as quickly as we have done, quicker than any government in the history of the world. Within 2 weeks, we have a budget amendment, and we're moving forward. So I will leave the rest of the presentation, especially of the ordinance, to Mr. Tillman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tillman?
This is ordinance number 2307, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving an amendment of the FY 2015 general fund budget to appropriate funding for additional fire department personnel. Whereas the fire department has a need for an additional 4 firefighter/emergency medical technicians, and whereas there are insufficient funds available in the FY 15 fire department budget to fund the additional 4 positions, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that the city's fiscal year 2014 general fund budget be hereby amended as follows. Increase the surplus available account 01000-469810 by $160,611 and increase the fire department budget by an equivalent amount. and that is the first reading.
Council?
Just a couple of comments and a couple of questions. I want to first say that I fully support the need for the firemen. There's no question in my mind that they're needed. However, I think that I would also like to make a point that I'm not a big fan of using surplus funds. Surplus funds are, in my mind, for real emergencies. I think we missed an opportunity, and I wasn't here, so hindsight's always 20/20. But I think we missed an opportunity when we knew that the grant was going to end on a certain date. And I think that if we believed in our heart of hearts, which we do, obviously, that these firemen were critical, it should have been budgeted for at that time and accommodations made. So I would hope that in the future, we look towards those kinds of things in our budgeting process to make sure that we have the critical pieces to serve the public safety interest of our citizens without having to go into a surplus account to address something that should have been predicted. I think I'll leave it at that.
Before we go further, I neglected, we do have one request for comment from the public, and I'd like to forward them the opportunity to speak before we continue. Ms. Gibson.
Kay Gibson, resident of Salisbury. I remember a couple of years ago when this grant became available, the Safe Streets grant for the 12 additional firefighters, that there was some skepticism on the council about accepting it because of the fact that it was time limited. Anyone hired was going to have to be made well aware and under contract that when it was over, it was over. At the time, the acting chief agreed that he understood when it was over, and he wasn't going to get additional staff. That was an agreement that was there. Now, additional firefighters have been hired, the part-timers, and now we need 4 more full-timers. I'm not sure we do, because it's not just a temporary budget amendment. This means next year it's going to be in the budget, so there's going to be constantly increasing costs. This was a concern that was shown 2 years ago when we accepted this grant. And sure enough, here we are, expanding the fire department. This wasn't supposed to happen, and it's happening. I think with the part-time increase and help, I don't see where you need 4 more firefighters. I think the public's very skeptical. I think the public sees the fire trucks out at the credit union with the dressed firefighters sitting there for 45 minutes while they take care of personal business. I think they see them at the restaurants. I've worked nights. I've worked shifts. I've gone in and haven't come home for 3 days. I was always prepared. I do know that you can get food in the city of Salisbury brought in 24/7. I hate to see our resources being utilized and gas and wear and tear on the trucks to go out and use for personal business. I think we need to rethink this. I think the fire department needs to rethink it. I think that we need to look at the administrative structure in the fire department and consider the positions and the level of the salaries that people are being paid. And we need to rethink this whole organization. I see absolutely no reason, since you have 11 part-time that have been added, to add 4 more full-time at taxpayers' expense. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Just for clarification, we're not discussing the Safe Streets grant this evening. We're discussing the SAFER grant. Also worth clarifying, we're discussing the budget amendment, not the administrative structure of the department this evening. If there's other council comment? Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Speed?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I have been combing through the reports that we've gotten from the fire department since budget time. I looked at those numbers then. We thought that when we took this grant, we knew that we needed more fire staff. The discussion was, to my recollection, that this was as I said last time, try it before you buy it, to see what that did to our numbers, what that did to our ability to respond and keep our citizens safe. And it turned out that it helped a lot. It did a lot for us. We thought that FEMA would open that grant back up in time for us to reapply and potentially get 2 more years. There was some discussion during budget session. There was some information presented to us then, and we've had a number of updates since then with ongoing changes using some of the funds that weren't used at the front on the back end to give us a couple extra weeks. All of that information combined with what we got from the personnel committees, what we got for the last 4 budgets that I've been on council for, what we've gotten from the chief and all the other sources of information, I am convinced, because I have a lot of information, I've invested a lot of time in looking at this, and I have been on the receiving end, thank God, not of the fire, but of the EMS services, and it matters what they do. And it is critical that we have the confidence of our citizens that they are safe, and that when they have an issue, that they're going to get a quick response and they're going to be taken care of. We had an unfortunate situation on Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving, where a life was lost, and we don't want more of that. We want to do everything that we can. I think that these 4 additional firemen are needed. In fact, I think from the information I've been able to discern, it's actually 6 that we need to have to meet the NFPA standards. So the 4 is actually quite conservative in that. And we knew that we were going to have decisions to make at the end of this grant. Yes, we knew that. We had that discussion. There were some people that wanted to extract promises and oaths that we wouldn't grow the department based on this. But it was proven that we needed these people. We needed these extra service persons. Even with this, we have 3rd and 4th, we have 5 ambulances right now. Only 3 of them are going to be in service with these as a primary run. So those 4th and 5th calls that come in, at least a couple of them a day, based on the numbers that I've seen, those are going to be outsourced to another department in the county, and they're going to get the revenue from that. So that's another piece of this that we have not discussed a whole lot. But those calls are what helps fund those ambulances that we have and help recoup that, rather than sitting in a bay at the fire department because we don't have staff to run them. So that's another thing that we need to consider. All of our firefighters are both firefighters and EMS trained, so they can do either. In my opinion, I think this needs to be 6. I'm very happy that we have the 4 and that we have the part-time that we're adding on, and I hope that that will help. And I would also like to remind the public that when we took on that SAFER grant, what that allowed us to do was to reduce our overtime in that department significantly. I believe the number was $150,000 a year for those 2 years. So there's $300,000 right there that we saved. And that money is only half of that is going back into this. Just over half of that is going back into this budget amendment to help fund that gap for the remainder of this fiscal year. At some point during that time, I hope that FEMA reopens this, gets this reopened, and we can reapply and are successful. But if not, we still have to have that serious conversation at budget time that our population has grown, our responsibilities have grown tremendously, the number of calls have grown, but the staff has not. You can only ask people to do so much. Thank you.
Mr. Spees?
Just briefly, as I stated last week in work session, I see the need, and with the growth of the city, we need to accommodate our fire department in manning. It's just a fact of life. I would like to say that while there's about $2.2 million out there that the city believes that the county owes it for services rendered to out-of-city fire victims, EMT victims, or EMT victims, sorry, no, those who need EMT services. I would like the city just to say, we're never going to get this money, and say that to itself, and say, where are we going to come up with the money? Because this is a pie in the sky. Unless the county says we're going to pull $2 million from a hat, we're never going to see that money, and we need to restructure what we think about providing services to the county, if that's what we want to do. But in the end, while we're paying twice for services by providing services from the city to the county, well, if the county comes up with the money to pay for those services, we're going to be paying for them again because it's going to require a county tax increase. So whatever way it works out, folks, we're going to be paying for this. I think that we need to come to some agreement with the county to mitigate this situation, and otherwise, we may be getting angry at one another, and that really doesn't work out very well from the county to the city. We've been there before, and it hasn't worked out well. So we're moving on with this amendment, and though it pains me a little bit to see money going out, I see that it's for a good cause. So yes, thank you.
To the points brought up about the fire services agreement, relationships are everything. Relationships are how things get done, and we have a good relationship with the county right now, and I look forward to sustaining that good relationship, that good working relationship with our friends at Wycomico County government. I believe that's how we're going to figure out what that compromise is, because it's going to require a compromise. There is only one service provided by a municipal corporation in this county to citizens who are not inside of that municipal corporation. All of us paying county taxes that are provided outside of those municipal boundaries, and that's fire service. And it happens in several municipalities. So it's something we've got to address, but it's probably not going to involve the transfer of $2.222 million from the county to any municipality. So you're right, Mr. Spees, but it's something we've got to take seriously and address at some point. A couple other things I take very seriously. One, the safety of our firefighters and the safety of our citizens. And as I understand it, and I'm not a fire protection expert, but as I understand it from what we've learned over the past few months, few weeks talking about this, having 4 firefighters on a truck is critical to the safety of our firefighters and critical to containing these fires to the room of origin, which is critical to the protection of both life and property. So that's something that is important, and it's something we've achieved with this grant. Even though response times have not improved dramatically, the other measures have. And these other measures, I think, are what I've learned are more important. We have another thing that plays into my decision-making here, which is the amount of money returned by the fire department to surplus every year, or the 2 budget cycles that I've been here, which is about $250,000, which is more than is being requested today. And I have no reason to believe that significantly less would be returned this year. So I believe we're borrowing from future savings we're going to get from the fire department this year anyway. I believe that's what this budget amendment does. It's an accounting of that. I think for that very reason, it could probably be achieved without a budget amendment, but I think this amendment is a great compromise in that it provides us a clear path to providing for the firefighters per truck that will ensure their safety and ensure the safety of our citizens and their property. So for that reason, I'm in support of it. And I'd like to go ahead and call the question unless there's any other comment from council or the mayor.
I just wanted to briefly say to you that we have been working as a team to draft our correspondence to the county executive and the new county council president, who, by the way, is here. I want to recognize him, John
Yes, he
Cannon.
is. Thank you, John Cannon.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
being
Mr.
here,
Cannon,
John.
for being here.
that we are ready to go back into closed session, and all of the suggestions that you all brought towards us are ready to go, and we'll come out of closed session and be ready to deliver that on January the 2nd.
Okay. All right. Unless there's anything else? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment as of ordinance number 2307 as presented, please signify your support by saying aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Reminder, this was first reading, so that'll be coming back to us. We do have another legislative
22nd.
session between now and 22nd, so this will be done before Christmas. Good. Okay. Thank you all.
I did have one more question I neglected to ask the mayor. The part-time are not mentioned in here, so this is just for the 4 full-time, and the part-time is coming out of existing budget monies?
Correct. That was, the difficulty over the last several weeks was that the SAFER grant's coming to an end, and they're going to be fired. They were going to be let go anyway, because when we apply for part-time work, it has to be posted, it has to be out there. They have to reapply. So we went through a bit of a upheaval about them losing their jobs. They were going to anyway, because there was no way that you can create a public position and have somebody just move over towards it. It was going to have to be posted, and they all reapplied.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item on our agenda is ordinance number 2308 for first reading. This is a budget amendment regarding the Shore Transit Circulator Program. I'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2308.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Tillman.
Whereas the FY 2015 budget ordinance included a $16,000 appropriation to support the Shore Transit Circular Program, and whereas after further review, an additional $21,000 is needed to support the program during FY 2015, and whereas the Shore Transit Circulator Program has been determined to be extremely beneficial to downtown, and whereas the city's FY 2015 budget does not contain an appropriation sufficient to cover this expense, now therefore be ordained by the City Council of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that the city's fiscal year 2014 general fund budget be and hereby is amended as follows, with an increase in the current surplus available, count 01000-469810 by $21,000, and an increase in community promotions by an equivalent amount.
I want to thank you, Mr. Tillman, council's attention to the numbers provided by Shore Transit through the city administrator, which gives a by ride breakdown of ridership, which if you look through it and you do a quick analysis, you can see that typically the 10:45 through 1:45 are the times that are getting the most attention, shall we say, and with the exception of third Fridays, where the 5 o'clock and through 7 o'clock routes are getting the bulk of the ridership. That was my interpretation. I'll also note that although this budget amendment is for $21,000 for the second semester of the year, the additional $5,000 was for signage and painting. And since this was written, conversations with Brad Belichico at Shore Transit have said he will pay for the signage, and Salisbury University, Robbie Sheehan, has said they will pay for the painting of the buses, which are right now Ocean City blue, and we're hoping to make them something more like Salisbury maroon, Salisbury gold. And so that Ocean City has to see our colors in the summer rather than us having to see their colors all year round. Just
Fair play.
Mr.
Unless
Council
they
President,
repaint them.
Yes.
do you want to just quickly, for the edification of the public, go through the total per day riderships on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays? Because I think that is pretty incredible. Do you have that on the back page?
I don't have it in front of me. Oh, is it on the back page?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had some discussion about removing the Saturday as well.
Yeah, we did. So there is Thursday, total per day is 756. Fridays is 370. Saturdays is 132. With total per time loop shown in the right-hand column. And it looks, again, like the highest times are 1:45 a.m., 11:30 p.m., followed by 10:45 p.m., 1 a.m., and then 7 p.m. after that. And the bulk of that seems to be third Friday. And you can see the third Friday hours at 5 p.m., 5:40 p.m., and 6:20 p.m. are not repeated any other time of the month, only third Fridays.
So am I correct if I was going to ask this question of Mr. Belichico, maybe you can answer it? This is saying
My best.
1,200 more people on that circulator coming downtown. Is this an average?
No,
This
these are exact
Okay,
numbers.
so this, all right, so
These
this
are
is.
actual, these are $1 placed in the
Right.
receptacle.
$12.50.
So $1 going into,
So, all right, let me just ask the question a different way. This isn't just, and it's because I don't teach math, I teach reading. I could read the budget amendment really well for you. This 1,200 is over the course from August.
it was the fall semester.
So August
um,
to now.
August to now,
End of August to now.
and end of August to now, that's right. So, let's see. Began Thursday, August 28th.
I was going to ask Laura, because Laura's really good with multipliers, especially with the zoo. I just can't imagine what this multiplier means for the businesses downtown. I'm trying to get a sense of, I wish we could, Barbecue Thornton's here, maybe they can
Yeah,
help
one
us.
of the things that we talked about was getting some information back from the businesses.
Right.
But I don't think that short of a period is really enough
Long
for them
enough.
to give us the information that we need. With
Right.
a full year, I think that, I would imagine that every person going down there spends at least $20 in a night, at least, exclusive of the fare.
Right.
So if you took that times 20, and then those employees that get that, go spend that 20.
Yeah.
So.
There's the multiplier.
Yeah,
The
the
oth-
multiplier effect, exactly. So at least 3 times turnover for that, so probably $60 out of every dollar paid.
The other thing you keep hearing is frequent requests for the trolley to come down my street.
Yeah.
My street, not theirs. Why can't it come down this street, not that street? My business is over here. But, I think, as with any transportation system, the nodes of the stops and the walking distance from there is what's important, not what it passes by necessarily.
As we plan for the second 6-month period, I will ask the guru there with the glasses who runs the numbers, if he can give us an idea of what.
Oh, you're talking about that one, not this one.
Well, you do the
No, he's
multipliers.
definitely the guru,
He's-
not me.
Using his fancy calculator that we have today, just to try and figure out if we could get some information either from out of working with the Chamber of Commerce to what that multiplies out to be for us.
Another thing that I think I'd like to bring up right now is that we requested a few things about timing, route, signage, et cetera, at the beginning of this agreement. And I think we all want to make sure that those are honored if we continue the agreement. And one of them was permanent signage at each permanent stop. There was also a request at our work session discussion. Is it me?
I have no idea.
At our work
I
session
think it's
discussion.
that second microphone next to you. You got one on each side
Okay.
of you, the other side too.
At our work session discussion, there was everybody good? Okay, not blasting eardrums now. There was some discussion of whether or not a stop should be placed in the neighborhoods close to the university, that would be along the route of the trolley, the current route of the trolley. There was some resistance to that when we started this process, so a determination needs to be made if that attitude has changed. There have been public comments about, why doesn't it stop in my neighborhood? And there are convenient places it could stop. So it's not impossible. It's just a matter of, it's not impossible, it's just a matter of us making a decision if that's something we would support and something we want to do. And I think we can do that as part of our reauthorization. And another thing to consider is this conversation about, do we want to go earlier in the evening? And in particular, if we're cutting some of the funding associated with signage and painting that's going to be provided by our partners, do we want to use that funding to allow the trolley to start at 5 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock to encourage maybe not those going to bars, but those going to dinner, those going to the coffee shop, which is still open, coffee shops, which are still open from 5 to 7. Is that something that we want to do and promote?
Or church too. I just want to say that I know that there's some ridership that's coming down to attend services at many of the churches downtown. I didn't want to just give the impression that.
There is Friday evening service
Yeah.
downtown.
I would, thinking about the earlier hours, I would give it to the vendors downtown to reach out and do some advertising specific to those folks who would come down at 5 o'clock for dinner. And I've put myself as one of them. I think older people want to come in earlier and be done with be back at home before it's real dark. Even
Which
though
is
that
5
happens
o'clock now.
at
It's
5
dark
o'clock
before
now.
you leave.
Yes, but I'm thinking more along summer lines, okay?
I think advertising is one of the missed opportunities here.
Absolutely. We
Which
talked
is
about
also
that.
one of the stipulations when we funded, that was to be a part of it, that downtown restaurants were to have the opportunity to participate in advertising in and on the trolley. And Short Transit has that program.
And early bird
They have
specials,
it,
I mean,
so it's
people love
possible.
early bird specials,
Right.
they really do.
We talked with Robbie Sheehan about that too, about doing some email blasts and getting businesses to fund advertising on there and that. One of the things about the changed routes or adding additional stops is that adds additional time to the circulator. One thing I was curious about was in the off months, when they're not being used in Ocean City, particularly for Third Fridays, is there an opportunity to have 2 trolleys so that we could have additional stops, at least on Third Friday, and have 2 trolleys still not lengthen the circulator time? So maybe that's something we could look at, so if we're cutting Saturday and put that extra time in on Thursdays and Fridays even.
Right.
Because if we had 2 running, then we could have additional stops without expanding that 30-minute cycle.
Another piece of data that we will get soon is what happens during semester break, the impact during semester break.
Right. Do we even run it?
Do we
during
run
break?
it?
Our agreement was that wouldn't fund, we would not be funding anything during break. So it stops running.
That will save us some money.
Yeah, so it stops running
When classes end,
when classes end.
or when finals end, I guess, when school's out.
So
So-
2 weeks from now until, when does semester break end? Are we looking at the 1st of February?
Beginning of February, end of January.
Right, okay, so,
Around that.
I think it's like
So
22nd
we
or
will
21st.
try and have this back on a work session with some information from you prior to
If
the
that's-
end of the second semester so that we can start to plan for
Right.
fiscal 16.
16.
Yeah, that'd be great. And it'd be great to schedule Brad Belichico from Short Transit
And
to be
Robbie,
here with us,
yeah.
and Robbie Sheehan.
And some of the business
And
owners.
even if Ms. Kordakowski could be there to represent her conversations with the downtown businesses, I think that'd be very useful.
So are we,
So to add, just
so go ahead.
to add a second trolley for those 2 hours, is that what you're thinking?
For the Thursday night and for the or for the third Friday, either one is what I was kicking around.
It looks like I think it comes out to about what we're being charged, which is not actual costs. It's only a small portion of the cost. $615 per hour, so multiply that by days.
So it'd be, maybe just on Third Fridays.
I mean, that's actually not multiplied by days, so if you're just to add an hour across the board on that
Oh, I
that
see.
day, like on
Okay.
a Thursday, that would be a $615 for the
For the
6
semester.
months.
Oh, okay.
So $1,200 for the year.
Okay. That's better than it came out the
It's
first
a-
time.
yeah, I like that better.
$6.15 an hour. I was like, whoa.
So in
Even
other
Jim
words,
knows that's
we
not
could-
right.
We could leave this as it's written, and they could add, they could add 3.5 hours.
Do the second circulator on the
So
third
that would
Friday.
that would enable Thursdays, or they would add a second trolley for 3 hours on Friday, for
The
example.
Thursday seems to have more ridership than even
Yes,
on Third
absolutely.
Friday. I mean, that's where the bulk of it is. I guess the question then is, probably for Brad Belichico, does adding that second route and additional stops pay off? Is the cost benefit
Right.
there?
I think we need.
Are you gonna pick up
And
additional
you need to-
riders?
He needs to do his calculations.
We need him to tell us.
Yeah, yeah. But
So,
I would leave the numbers as they are for this reading, and then we can get that information in the interim, and then for second reading, if we need to make an adjustment, do that
Right.
at that point.
and one of the adjustments we could make would be just to reduce this back to 16.
Right.
And just say, that's what it is for this semester, and we'll plan for FY 16.
Yeah.
Alternatively, we could, use this number or a number close to it, and change the hours based on Mr. Belichico's advice, if we get it by that time.
Well, the more I think about that, though, I think if we're gonna have good data, we need apples and apples. So it's probably better not to change anything and have that full year
Sure.
of information that's all equivalent, and do that examination and look at it for next year.
Particularly with better advertising.
Right.
Well, it depends on how many the vendors can pull in and how they do it.
Right, but if you change multiple factors, you don't know which one worked. So if we get advertisers coming in and we change the number of stops and
Right.
trips, then we don't know which one brought in additional.
Well, when Mr. Belichico comes back and talks to us about extending hours, then there has to be some traction from the downtown participants.
Yeah, they need to tell us, and one of the first comments that I received from multiple, and I'll say it was from Maya Bella's and Main Routes in particular, was, we're not serving alcohol, so we're open until 7. So that 5 to 7 block would be great if you could pick that up. So there's business owners that are saying it, so we can, I think hearing from them will be useful, because they've said it. So having them here would be, as part of the conversation, would be important as well.
I have one more thing to say about the trolley itself, and I mentioned this last week, was that I'd like to see some more lighting on that thing. It's like a gray ghost at night. It's very quiet as well. It's like a Prius sneaking up on you, But to have some, not outrageous lighting, but something that looks like there's a celebration going on.
Right. They're DOT-funded vehicles, so there's probably DOT standards on what can go on them.
Well, I'm not necessarily inside. I mean, some of that could be inside. Rope lighting could be inside.
We talked about rope lighting.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good.
signs or lights that light up the advertising on the
Lit
side.
signage on the side.
Exactly.
Now,
I'm in
adding,
favor of both.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Adding the 5 and 6 o'clock hour wouldn't skew our results, because they're separate. We can see the hour by hour. It's not like adding a second trip during time we already have, so that's something that could be considered.
Okay, so we'll leave it as is for now. Any other comments? All those in favor of ordinance number 2308, please signify your support by saying aye.
Right.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Mr. Heath, I didn't hear you.
I know.
Okay, are you abstaining or any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Abstention, okay.
And I will tell you the reason, the reason. Surplus.
Understood. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the audit presentation.
Hey, Jake, you have to have 4.
What's that? Not at first reading.
Not the first
Not for first reading.
Nope.
I checked
Read
it.
all parts of the code.
I checked it already.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
And take notes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I have to admit, I set him up, I asked the question.
I have so many of these books. I have so many of these books.
Really wish they were.
Yes, thank you.
They are.
We're gonna have to get another bookshelf.
Thank you. Could I have one for Ms. Shields too? Yes.
Or do you get a
Thank
tiny
you.
one?
She'll be-
This is like a Christmas present.
There's 2 of them. Because
It's a single.
they are.
Thank you so much.
I can't
For
imagine.
the 990.
Thank you so much.
Bigger is better. Thank you. More is less.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this
Good
evening.
evening.
Pam Baker, partnering with Barbicane Thornton and Company, and I know we had the opportunity last week to spend more time than we're going to spend tonight going through the audit, and I appreciate the conversation that we had at your workshop meeting. Tonight, what you have before you is the final bound copy of the Independent Auditor's Report for the year ended June 30, 2014. The thicker document that you have is the overall Independent Auditor's Report. The smaller one is the single audit supplement. And I do believe that these will be made available on your website after this evening, as they are now final. What I'm going to do is just give you the overall results of the audit. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time going through the audit, but I will tell you that it did not change very much, maybe a couple of typos from last week to this week. So if you did have an opportunity to go through it in even more detail since our meeting last week, or if you weren't able to be at the meeting last week, I'm certainly willing to take and entertain any questions that you may have. The first thing I would like to do, though, as I sort of mentioned last week, I think that from an overall standpoint, it's important for me to point out a couple of things this year that are a little bit different from last year. Last year there have been several initiatives working over a long period of time in terms of overall some of the financial internal control related issues within the city, that we've talked about over prior years. This year, for the first time ever, your finance department took your software and built a bridge to present your financial statements. That's a very big accomplishment. I know if you took last year's audit report and laid it next to this year's audit report, it's going to look like the same thing. But the fact that now so every transaction that happens here, whether it's a deposit or a check written, now when it goes into your system, could a button be pushed and could push out financial statements. So that's a really big accomplishment for the finance department this year. Another really big accomplishment this year for the finance department was really looking at your capital projects, because as you know, you manage on a month-to-month basis, especially in the general fund, on a current resources process, right? So you've got a current budget and you're managing the current budget. But there's also, of course, long-term obligations, right? There's bond funds managing capital projects. And that's another huge accounting to keep track of projects which might be approved this year and might take 3 years to complete. So someone's got to keep the bond pools and the capital projects in line with one another. And that was another very large undertaking that Keith and his department took on this year to better map and better match those two. And so I really kind of wanted to take a minute to point that out. And then thirdly, the other big thing that I know we've talked about every year since we were your auditors, we talked about the way that your pooled cash was balanced between funds and that some funds drove deficits because of it. This year, both of those issues were taken care of. So we're very pleased that items that we had brought to your attention in prior years as deficiencies have been corrected, and they've been corrected through the accounting processes, which is the way they should have been corrected. So we're very pleased to be able to bring that to you. Overall, when we talk about the audit, the most important pages to us, and probably to you as well, are pages 2 through 4 in that document that I just handed out to you, and that's the auditor's opinion. So as a culmination of everything that we do when we come on site, following everything that Keith and his staff have done, we of course look at your financial statements. We look at your entity-wide presentation, we look at your fund level presentation, and we assess your controls from day-to-day transactions to overall financial reporting. And based on our looking at your internal controls and the tests that we do, we then render an opinion. The opinion is on the top of page 3, and basically it's probably the shortest paragraph in these 3 pages, but it says that in our opinion, the financial statements of the city of Salisbury are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for all funds and accounts of the city. So that's, the highest you can get. That's an unmodified opinion. and we're pleased to be able to tell you that the city once again did achieve that. There is some other information included within these financial statements, a management's discussion and analysis, which is prepared by management. It is supplementary information, required supplementary information. It's our responsibility as the auditors of the city to read that and ensure that it is complete in the required elements, and that any financial numbers, any graphs, any pie charts, anything that's presented there agree with the audited financial statements. There's also some other additional information in this document which is statistical in nature. So it paints a picture not only of just this year, but multiple years of information. So if you really wanted to look at your revenues for a 5-year period or expenditures for a 5-year period, looking back historically, that's included in here as well. As I said, I'm not going to go through the whole document. The management's discussion and analysis prepared by management. Overall, and if you want to look in your booklet on page 12, is the statement of net position. Statement of net position is looking at the city as though it were a business, okay? So if you were capturing, which your accounting system does, all of your capital assets, the depreciation of those assets, so more of a long-term perspective as opposed to a short-term perspective. If you look at the city of Salisbury overall, you have two types of activities. You've got governmental activities, which is all your governmental funds, your capital funds, not related to water, sewer, and other proprietary operations. So that's governmental, then you have business type. The city had positive net position for both. So for the governmental activities, your net position is at $28.5 million. And for your business type activities, again, predominantly water and sewer, your net position came in at 87.3. That's sort of your equity, like your retained earnings. If you were measuring yourself like a business, what you want to see is that the business type activities have larger net position than governmental, because as you know, business type activities are providing services, water, sewer, and those are capital intensive. So therefore you need a larger, net position to be able to manage so that you can continue the delivery of services. So those are good trends, from an overall perspective. The other item that I would point out, one thing while we're on this page, I will bring to your attention, we talked about it last week. When you look at the governmental activities and the business type activities net position, you are already recognizing the actuarial value of future promised benefits post-employment, predominantly healthcare benefits. You're recognizing those liabilities. For the governmental activities, it's $14 million, and for the business type, it's $3.5. Next year, you will be also picking up the actuarial liabilities for any part of the state retirement fund that the city participates in for its employees. If that plan is underfunded, you're going to also pick up your portion of that. That's a new GASB standard, and we'll be talking about that more throughout this year. You may be hearing more from Keith about that as we approach that, but that's a new GASB standard. It does not affect funding. Very important for you to know that it's an accounting issue, but it's not a funding issue, okay? Just kind of taking a minute to look at the overall results of the general fund. Now we're going to switch and just kind of look at the short-term perspective, which is the budget year, and the budget, which is predominantly the general fund. That's going to be summarized on page 47, and I think this is a good presentation as well, because when you look at page 47, the city budgeted to bring in $33.2 million. Of that, you were going to use $2.1 million of your fund balance. Okay, so new revenues were going to be about $31 million. You actually brought in $32 million, so your overall revenues were favorable to budget, and not bringing forth that surplus and needing to use it. On the expenditure side, okay, your expenditures came in under budget as well. So you had $32.3 million budgeted. Well, probably add debt service in there. 36 million, and you came in at about 33 million, so you were favorable there as well. What did that mean overall for the city? Okay, so from a $33 million budget, you used about $91,000 of fund balance. So you just about broke even, okay, from the budgeted revenue to the budgeted expenditures. That means your revenues were projected well and came in on target, and that your expenditures were managed within the targeted budget. So overall, your general fund came in as anticipated and as planned in the budget season that was, probably a year and a half ago at this point. The last thing I'll point out to you in the financials is on page 19, if we just want to look for a minute at the proprietary operations. Again, this is mostly for you, the Water and Sewer Fund. So the Water and Sewer Funds brought in $16.1 million. Expenses before depreciation were 9.8 and depreciation was 1.3. So favorable, adding to your net equity by $4.1 million. Again, pointing out that for water and sewer operations, which are very capital intensive, that's a good thing. You want to be able to generate charges that will support infrastructure, because every year, as you know, you have infrastructure to maintain.
Yes,
So
we do.
that's a positive.
Yes, we do.
That's a positive in your water and sewer as well. I'm not going to go through the rest of this booklet. I would love to if you'd like me to, but we had a couple of adjustments we proposed this year, but nothing that was significant in terms of the number of entries. Entries that we did have, we really were working in conjunction with Keith and his staff to come up with those entries. There were no new accounting principles this year. As I said, next year there'll be a new one, and the year after that there'll be another one. We've had a long series, like for the past 3 years, of new accounting principles, but this year everything was consistent. I would like to take the opportunity to thank, Keith and his staff, and really everybody at the city. When we come on board, I will say that is a very, very tight schedule. Very tight. We hit the ground running. They're ready for us. We really do. Our staff comes down. They stay over. They put the effort in. Keith offered to buy them lunch the last day. Pick it up. You knew they were so busy trying to finish. So I do appreciate that. As I said, for an engagement this size, it's a big challenge to turn it around in the time frame, and it's the things that go on every day during the year that bring us to this point. And I think you're on a good track now. I think we're on a good schedule now. And so, congratulations to you for getting your audit done the beginning of December.
Well, Ms. Baker, a couple things. One, I want to say I'm really glad that the audit's done when it is. This is fantastic. Also, think we need to take a moment just to recognize. I said this at the work session. I've been through a number of audits, obviously, with the cities, but quite a few in the nonprofit world as well. And this is probably the most clean experience, and report that I've seen. And I think that speaks volumes for not only Mr. Cordry and his team and all of the department heads and staff, but the city administrator and the mayor and their leadership in executing and ensuring that we're watching every penny. So I want to thank them for their great work. Are there questions, comments? Mr. Eaton?
I just have one for Keith, I guess. Do we use accelerated depreciation or?
No,
No.
straight line.
Straight.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is it?
Okay, you sure?
I
That's
didn't
it.
know what that question was. You should have prefaced it with some sort of comma in there. I'll ask Keith.
Other questions or comments from council? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well.
I would like to make a comment if I could. I'd like to take this opportunity to compliment Mr. Cordry and his staff. I've had the great pleasure of working closely with Keith for about 15 months now, and I don't think I've ever worked with anybody who was so particular about attention to detail. And we tease Keith sometimes because I might call down and have a very what I believe to be a very simple question. And
It's not.
15 spreadsheets later, I get my answer, and then I have to invite Mr. Cordry up to my office to help me get through it so that I can understand what it is that he's trying to say. But Keith, you and your folks have done just an incredible job. You came in, took a look at where we were, made an immediate recommendation to reorganize the department, and it's obviously paid off, and it is an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to work with you and your team.
Well, that's all we have, ladies and gentlemen. One thing I want to do, and I did call it before we started.
I got under.
Oh, Jack, do you have something that's 24 minutes long?
No.
Okay. Your money was on the over. Well, Mr. Heath, you first, and then I just have one item for council business before we go. But Mr. Heath.
No, I'm fine. I just,
Oh,
I'm
I
good.
thought you had something.
no.
Okay. All right. So my one comment is a reminder that we have scheduled this Saturday from 12 to 5:30 a goal setting session that Mayor Ireton obviously wanted us to do. You can see from his facial expression.
So we just have to Christmas shop. I'm still not sure when
Well,
that's supposed
but-
to start, but I'll be there.
But this is your
Start
Christmas
this
present
early.
to
You can't
Ms.
tell me.
Shields,
This
who
is
has
my
been
present to
asking
Ms.
for it
Shields.
for months.
Yes, it
So we are accommodating, and it'll be a good thing. It'll be a good conversation for council to have. Salisbury University is our host, which is also something we're very grateful for. So public notice and message to council with details will go out, tomorrow?
It should go out.
Tomorrow. Okay, great. And we're grateful to Salisbury University.
We're starting at what
hosting
time?
us. 12 o'clock. 12 to 5:30, I think is what we have
I thought
scheduled.
we had originally thought like 8:30.
12:30 to 5, I thought.
12:30 to 5, excuse me.
Okay.
Forgive me.
That's short.
Watch your email.
Yeah, watch your email.
Details.
Tom and I are ringing the bell at Walmart for the Salvation Army at 6.
6.
So we have to be.
Okay, you
there.
have to
Yes.
escape shortly thereafter.
5:40.
Okay.
I think we can get there in
I don't think that'll be a problem.
Get you an escort.
All right. Well, with that, we are adjourned.
You can go buy